The morning sun cast long shadows across the Naval Special Warfare Training Facility in Coronado, California. Sarah Martinez adjusted her rifle scope for the 100th time that week, her calloused fingers moving with practiced precision. Around her, the other candidates for SEAL Team 6's elite sniper program whispered among themselves, their voices carrying a mixture of doubt and mockery that had become all too familiar. "Look at her trying so hard," muttered Jake Thompson, a bulky former Marine who had made it clear from day one that he didn't believe women belonged in combat roles. "She thinks adjusting that scope 20 times will make her shot any better." Sarah kept her focus on the target downrange, a standard silhouette at 800 yards. She had been dealing with comments like these for months now, ever since she became the first woman to qualify for the advanced sniper program. The whispers followed her everywhere, in the mess hall, during physical training, and especially here on the rifle range, where she was expected to prove herself daily. "I heard she only made it this far because of politics," another voice chimed in. This time it was Marcus Webb, whose father had been a decorated Navy SEAL. You know how it is these days. They need their diversity poster girl. The instructor, Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez, called for silence as he began the day's briefing. Sarah had enormous respect for Rodriguez. He was a legend in the SEAL community with over 2 decades of service and confirmed kills in 3 different theaters of war. Unlike many of the other instructors, he evaluated everyone based purely on performance. "Today, we're running the Advanced Urban Warfare Simulation," Rodriguez announced. "You'll be working in pairs, with 1 spotter and 1 shooter. The scenario involves multiple targets at varying distances in a simulated Middle Eastern city environment. Wind conditions will change throughout the exercise, and you'll have civilians mixed in with hostiles." Sarah partnered with David Kim, a quiet but skilled operator who had shown her respect from the beginning. Kim had grown up in a military family and understood that competence mattered more than gender. As they moved to their assigned position, Sarah could hear the snickering from some of the other teams. $20 says the girl chokes under pressure. Someone whispered loudly enough for her to hear. The simulation began with a complex scenario. Intelligence indicated that several high-value targets were meeting in a compound, but civilians were present throughout the area. Sarah and Kim took position on a rooftop overlooking the mock city. Through her scope, Sarah could see the detailed mannequins and pop-up targets that would simulate real combat conditions. "I've got movement in Building 3, Kim whispered into his radio, serving as her spotter. 2 hostiles, ground floor, eastern window. Sarah adjusted her position slightly, calculating windage and elevation in her head. The breeze had shifted since they took position, coming now from the southwest at approximately 8 miles per hour. She made the necessary adjustments to her scope, her breathing steady and controlled. "Wind's picking up," Kim observed, watching his instruments, gusting to 12 now. Now attempted to turn sour, making another micro-adjustment. This was exactly the kind of challenging condition that separated good snipers from great ones. She had spent countless hours studying ballistics, wind patterns, and environmental factors that could affect a shot. While some of her male counterparts relied more on instinct and experience, Sarah had approached the science of precision shooting with methodical dedication. The first target appeared in her scope, a hostile figure holding what appeared to be a rocket-propelled grenade launcher. In a real scenario, this would represent an immediate threat to friendly forces. Sarah controlled her breathing, found her natural respiratory pause, and squeezed the trigger with steady pressure. The shot rang out across the training facility. Through her scope, Sarah watched the target drop cleanly. A perfect center mass hit. "Target down," Kim reported over the radio. But the simulation was just beginning. Over the next 45 minutes, Sarah and Kim worked through an increasingly complex scenario. Targets appeared at different ranges, some as close as 200 yards, others pushing out to 1,200 yards. The wind continued to shift, and the lighting changed as artificial clouds moved across the simulated sky. Sarah's performance was flawless. Shot after shot found its mark, even under the most challenging conditions. When a particularly difficult target appeared at maximum range while wind conditions were at their worst, she took extra time to calculate the shot. Some of the observers began to murmur, thinking she was hesitating. "Come on, princess," Jake called out loud enough for everyone to hear. Clock's ticking. Sarah ignored the taunt, made her final adjustment, and sent the round down range. The target dropped immediately. Another perfect hit. As the simulation concluded, Chief Rodriguez reviewed the scores. Sarah had achieved a perfect score, hitting every target with precision while avoiding all civilian mannequins. It was a performance that would have been impressive for any operator, regardless of experience level. Outstanding work, Martinez, Rodriguez said loud enough for the entire group to hear. That's the kind of shooting that saves lives downrange. But even as the instructor praised her performance, Sarah could see the resentment in some of her classmates' faces. Rather than earning respect, her success seemed to generate more hostility from those who were determined to see her fail. During the debrief session, the conversation turned to real-world applications. Rodriguez shared stories from his deployments, explaining how the skills they were learning would translate to actual combat situations. In Afghanistan, he said, I once had to take a shot at 900 yards in shifting wind conditions to protect a convoy that was taking fire. The difference between a good shot and a great shot isn't just training, it's the ability to perform under pressure when lives depend on it. After the formal training ended for the day, Sarah remained on the range to practice. This had become her routine, staying late to work on her craft while others headed to the barracks or the recreation areas. She was setting up for another series of long-range shots when she noticed Jake and several others approaching. You know, Martinez, Jake said, his voice carrying a tone that made Sarah immediately alert. Some of us have been talking. We don't think you really understand what you're getting yourself into. Sarah continued preparing her rifle, not looking up. I think I understand just fine, Thompson. Do you? Marcus Webb stepped closer. Because this isn't some training exercise. When we deploy, we're going into places where the enemy doesn't care about your feelings or your politics. They'll torture you, do things to you that you can't imagine. And when that happens, you'll break, and good men will die because of it. Finally, Sarah looked up from her rifle. Her dark eyes were steady and calm. Is that your professional assessment, Webb, or are you just repeating something you heard your daddy say? The comment hit its mark. Webb's face flushed red with anger. You think this is a joke? You think being tough in training means anything? I think, Sarah said, standing to her full height, that I've outshot every one of you in every exercise we've done. I think that when the time comes to prove myself downrange, my rifle will do the talking. Jake laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. Your rifle, huh? Well, maybe we'll get lucky and find out just how tough you really are. Word is, we're getting deployment orders soon. Some real action in the Middle East. Sarah felt her pulse quicken slightly, but not from fear, from anticipation. She had joined the SEALs for exactly this reason, to serve her country in the most challenging environments possible. The training had been intense, but she knew that real combat would be the ultimate test of everything she had learned. I look forward to it, she said simply. As the group dispersed, David Kim approached. He had been quietly observing the confrontation from a distance. Don't let them get to you, he said. Half of that is just nerves. Everyone's on edge about deployment. Sarah nodded, appreciating Kim's support. I know what this is about, David. It's not really about whether I can do the job. It's about change, and some people don't handle change well. That evening in the barracks, Sarah video called her younger sister Maria, who was studying engineering at MIT. Maria had always been Sarah's biggest supporter, even when their parents had expressed concerns about her career choice. How's superhero training going? Maria asked with a smile that reminded Sarah of their childhood together in San Antonio. Challenging, Sarah replied honestly. The physical demands are exactly what I expected, but dealing with some of the attitudes has been harder than I thought it would be. Are they giving you a hard time because you're a woman? Some of them are, but not all. There are good people here who judge based on performance. Chief Rodriguez has been fair, and my shooting partner, David, treats me like any other operator. What about the others? Sarah was quiet for a moment, considering how much to share. They think I'll be a liability in combat, that I'll break under pressure and get people killed. And what do you think? I think, Sarah said with quiet conviction, that I'm going to prove them wrong. The next morning brought news that everyone had been expecting. 4:04. Chief Rodriguez gathered the advanced sniper class in the briefing room. his expression serious. "Gentlemen," he began, then corrected himself with a nod toward Sarah. "Operators, we've received deployment orders. SEAL Team 6 is rotating into Syria to conduct direct action missions against high-value targets. Intelligence indicates that ISIS has been regrouping in certain sectors, and they've been targeting coalition forces with increased frequency." Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. This was what she had trained for, what she had dreamed about since deciding to pursue special operations. At the same time, she understood that combat would bring challenges she couldn't fully prepare for in training. Rodriguez continued the briefing, explaining their mission parameters and the specific threats they would face. The enemy in this region was known for sophisticated tactics, including the use of trained snipers and improvised explosive devices. It would be a dangerous deployment for even the most experienced operators. "Martinez," Rodriguez said after dismissing the group, "I want to speak with you privately." Sarah remained behind as the others filed out. She noticed Jake and Marcus exchanging looks as they left, and she wondered what they might be thinking. "I'm going to be straight with you," Rodriguez said once they were alone. "This deployment is going to test everything you've learned here. The enemy we're facing has combat experience, and they won't hesitate to target you specifically because you're a woman." Sarah nodded. "I understand, Chief. I also want you to know that your performance in training has been exceptional. You've earned your place on this team through skill and dedication. But once we're downrange, none of that matters if you can't perform under combat stress." "I won't let the team down," Sarah said. Rodriguez studied her for a moment. "I believe that, but I also need you to understand that some of your teammates still have doubts. In combat, trust is everything. If they don't trust you, it puts everyone at risk. What do you suggest I do about that?" "Keep doing what you've been doing. Let your performance speak for itself. Combat has a way of revealing who people really are, and I suspect you'll surprise some folks." As Sarah left the briefing room, she felt the weight of what lay ahead. In just 2 weeks, she would be deploying to one of the most dangerous regions in the world, where her skills would be tested in ways that no training exercise could replicate. The stakes couldn't be higher, and she knew that failure wasn't just about personal disappointment. In combat, mistakes cost lives. That evening, she spent extra time on the range, working on her shooting positions and practicing rapid target engagement. The desert wind reminded her of conditions she might face downrange, and she used the opportunity to practice reading wind patterns and making quick adjustments. As she packed up her equipment, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. Growing up in a military family, she had always known she wanted to serve her country. Her father, a retired Army Ranger, had initially been skeptical about her choice to pursue special operations, but he had come to support her determination. The path hadn't been easy. Basic underwater demolition/SEAL training had pushed her to physical and mental limits she hadn't known existed. The sniper school had challenged her in different ways, requiring not just physical endurance but intense mental focus and technical precision. Now standing on the edge of her first combat deployment, Sarah felt ready for whatever challenges awaited. She had proven herself in training, demonstrating skills that matched or exceeded her male counterparts. But she knew that combat would be different. In the field, there would be no do-overs, no training safety nets. The enemy wouldn't care about gender politics or social progress. They would try to kill her and her teammates with equal enthusiasm. And in that environment, Sarah knew that only one thing would matter: her ability to complete the mission and bring everyone home alive. As she walked back to the barracks under the California stars, Sarah Martinez prepared mentally for the greatest challenge of her life. In 2 weeks, she would find out if all the training, all the preparation, all the determination would be enough when bullets started flying for real. The doubters would get their chance to see what she was really made of, and Sarah was determined to show them something they would never forget. The C-130 transport aircraft rumbled through the night sky over the Mediterranean Sea, carrying 12 members of SEAL Team 6 toward their deployment in northern Syria. Sarah Martinez sat in her assigned seat, checking her equipment for the 3rd time. Her custom-built rifle lay secured in its case beside her, along with specialized ammunition designed for long-range precision work. Across from her, Jake Thompson was telling war stories to some of the newer team members, his voice barely audible over the aircraft engines. Sarah noticed how he deliberately spoke loud enough for her to hear certain comments about how different this deployment would be compared to their previous missions. In Fallujah, Jake was saying, "We had this one mission where everything went sideways. Intel was wrong, enemy was dug in deeper than expected, and we had to fight our way out through 3 city blocks. That's when you find out who's really got your back and who's just along for the ride." Sarah understood the message. Jake was questioning whether she would be reliable when things got difficult. She chose not to respond, instead focusing on the mission briefings she had memorized during the flight. Their target area was a region of northern Syria where ISIS fighters had established a new stronghold after being pushed out of other territories. Intelligence reports indicated that the group was being led by a commander known as Abu Rashid, a former Iraqi military officer who had experience fighting American forces. Rashid was considered extremely dangerous, with tactical knowledge that made him a high-priority target. The team's mission was to conduct surveillance and direct action operations, gathering intelligence on enemy movements and eliminating high-value targets when opportunities presented themselves. Sarah's role as a sniper would be crucial, providing overwatch and long-range precision fires to support the team's operations. As the aircraft began its descent toward the forward operating base, Chief Rodriguez gathered the team for a final briefing. "Remember, this isn't training anymore," he said, his voice serious. "The enemy we're facing has combat experience and home field advantage. They know the terrain, they know the population, and they've been preparing for our arrival." The base was a joint operation facility shared with British Special Air Service and French Special Operations units. Sarah was struck by the professional atmosphere. Despite the international mix of personnel, everyone moved with the focused efficiency that marked elite military units. Their first week consisted primarily of reconnaissance missions, gathering intelligence on enemy positions and movement patterns. Sarah found herself paired with David Kim for most operations, their partnership from training continuing to work effectively in the field. On their third night, they were positioned on a hilltop overlooking a village suspected of harboring ISIS fighters. Through her night vision scope, Sarah could see several buildings that intelligence had identified as possible enemy locations. "Movement in the compound," Kim whispered, studying the area through his spotting scope. 2 individuals, armed, moving between buildings. Sarah adjusted her position slightly, bringing her rifle to bear on the target area. The distance was approximately 600 yards, well within her comfort zone under normal conditions. But this wasn't training, and she felt the additional weight of knowing that these were real enemies who would kill her and her teammates given the chance. "Rules of engagement are clear," came the voice of Lieutenant Commander Harrison over their radio. Harrison was the team leader, a veteran operator with multiple deployments under his belt. Positive identification required before engagement. Through her scope, Sarah watched as one of the figures moved into better light. She could clearly see the distinctive black clothing and equipment typical of ISIS fighters. The individual was carrying what appeared to be an assault rifle and had additional equipment that suggested preparation for an attack. "I have positive identification on one target," Sarah whispered into her microphone. "Armed male, military age, ISIS indicators present. You are cleared to engage," Harrison responded. Sarah controlled her breathing, finding the natural respiratory pause that had become second nature during months of training. The crosshairs settled on center mass of the target, accounting for the slight crosswind she could feel on her face. The shot broke cleanly, and through her scope, Sarah watched the target drop immediately. It was her first combat kill, a moment she had prepared for mentally but which still carried emotional weight. "Target down," Kim confirmed through his spotting scope. "Good shot," came Harrison's voice over the radio. "Maintain observation." The second figure quickly disappeared into the building, obviously alerted by the sound of the gunshot. Sarah kept her rifle trained on possible exit points while Kim continued surveillance of the surrounding area. Over the following weeks, Sarah's reputation within the team began to shift. Her consistent performance during operations, combined with several successful long-range engagements, gradually earned respect from most of her teammates. Even some of the initial skeptics began to acknowledge her capabilities. But Jake Thompson remained unconvinced. During a team meeting after a particularly successful operation, he made his feelings clear. "She's had some lucky shots, he said when Commander Harrison praised the team's performance. "But we haven't faced any real pressure yet. These have been easy targets in controlled situations." Sarah felt frustration building but kept her response professional. "Every target we've engaged has been eliminated as directed. I'm not sure what additional proof of competence you require." "Proof?" Jake laughed. "How about when we're taking fire from multiple directions and you have to make a shot that saves lives instead of just picking off lone sentries?" As if responding to his challenge, their next mission brief presented exactly that scenario. Intelligence had located Abu Rashid, the ISIS commander they had been tracking. He would be meeting with several subordinate leaders in a compound deep in enemy-controlled territory. The mission would require the team to infiltrate close to the target area, with Sarah providing sniper support from an overwatch position while the rest of the team conducted a direct assault on the compound. It was exactly the kind of high-risk operation that would test everyone's abilities under maximum stress. "This is what we came here for," Harrison told the team during their planning session. "Rashid is responsible for coordinating attacks that have killed American and coalition personnel. Taking him out will significantly disrupt their operations in this region." The plan called for Sarah and Kim to establish their sniper position on a ridge approximately 800 yards from the target compound. From there, they would provide overwatch and precision fires to support the assault team's approach and withdrawal. "Wind conditions are expected to be challenging," Kim noted as they studied the terrain maps. "The ridge creates unpredictable air currents and will be shooting across a valley with variable elevation." Sarah nodded, already calculating the ballistic challenges they would face. She had spent additional time studying the local weather patterns and topographic features, preparing for exactly this kind of complex shooting environment. The night of the operation, the team moved out under cover of darkness. Sarah carried her rifle and additional equipment, approximately 60 pounds of gear total, across several miles of difficult terrain. The approach to their position required climbing steep rocky slopes while maintaining noise discipline. By 0300 hours, Sarah and Kim were in position on the ridge. Through her scope, Sarah could see the target compound clearly. Intelligence had been accurate. Several vehicles were parked outside, and thermal imaging revealed multiple individuals inside the buildings. "Overwatch is in position," Kim reported to the assault team. "Copy, Overwatch. Beginning our approach," Harrison responded. As the assault team moved closer to the compound, Sarah tracked their progress through her scope, while simultaneously monitoring the target area for enemy activity. The compound appeared quiet, with most of the occupants presumably asleep. At 0430, everything changed. The distinctive sound of automatic weapons fire erupted from multiple positions around the compound. The assault team had been detected during their final approach, and enemy fighters were engaging them from prepared defensive positions. "Contact! Contact!" Harrison's voice came over the radio with the urgent tone that every soldier recognized. "We're taking fire from multiple positions. Need immediate support." Through her scope, Sarah could see muzzle flashes from several windows and rooftop positions around the compound. The assault team was pinned down behind limited cover, unable to advance or withdraw safely. "I can see 3 enemy positions engaging you," Sarah reported. "Range approximately 850 yards. Wind from the southwest at 12 knots. You are cleared to engage any targets threatening the assault team." Harrison responded, his voice strained as bullets impacted near his position. Sarah identified her first target, an enemy fighter on a rooftop who was directing effective fire at her teammates below. The range was longer than most of her training shots, and the wind conditions were exactly as challenging as Kim had predicted. She made her calculations quickly, adjusting for the crosswind and the slight uphill angle of the shot. Through her scope, she could see the enemy fighter clearly, but she also noticed civilians in nearby buildings who could be at risk if her shot missed. "First target acquired," she whispered to Kim. "Send it," he responded. The shot felt perfect as it broke through her scope. Sarah watched the enemy fighter drop immediately. The incoming fire from that position ceased, giving the assault team some relief. "Target down," Kim confirmed. But there was no time to celebrate. Enemy fighters were moving to new positions, and Sarah could see additional threats emerging from other buildings. The situation was rapidly becoming more dangerous for the assault team. "Multiple enemy reinforcements arriving from the north," Kim observed. Looks like they had a quick reaction force ready. Sarah shifted her aim to engage the new threats. These targets were moving, making the shots much more difficult. She led her targets carefully, accounting for their movement speed and direction while maintaining her calculations for wind and elevation. Her second shot dropped another enemy fighter who had been setting up a machine gun position. The third shot eliminated a sniper who was trying to engage the assault team from a window. "Outstanding shooting," Harrison's voice came over the radio. "You're keeping them off our backs." But the enemy was adapting. Through her scope, Sarah could see fighters moving to positions that would be difficult for her to engage, while still maintaining fields of fire against the assault team. "They're getting smart," Kim observed. "Moving to spots where they can shoot at our guys but stay in your dead space." Sarah studied the situation, looking for solutions. The assault team was still pinned down, unable to complete their mission or withdraw safely. Enemy reinforcements continued to arrive, and the tactical situation was deteriorating rapidly. "I need to change position," Sarah told Kim. "From here, I can't engage the threats that are keeping our team pinned down. Moving position during active contact is extremely dangerous," Kim replied. "If they spot us, we'll be exposed." Sarah understood the risks, but she also understood that her teammates' lives depended on her ability to provide effective support. The entire mission could fail if the assault team couldn't break contact and withdraw safely. "We have to try," she said simply. What happened next would test every skill Sarah had developed during her years of training. Moving under enemy fire while maintaining the ability to provide precision shooting support required a level of tactical proficiency that few snipers ever had to demonstrate. As she prepared to move to a new firing position, Sarah could hear Jake's voice in her mind questioning whether she would be reliable under pressure. In a few minutes, she would have her answer. The sound of incoming mortar rounds began to echo across the valley. The enemy was bringing heavier weapons to bear, and the situation was about to become much more dangerous for everyone involved. Sarah Martinez was about to face the ultimate test of her skills, courage, and determination. Everything she had trained for, everything she had endured, had led to this moment. In the darkness of a Syrian valley, with her teammates' lives hanging in the balance, she would prove once and for all what she was capable of. The mortar rounds exploded closer to the assault team's position, sending shrapnel and debris flying through the air. Sarah could hear the distinctive whistle of incoming rounds and knew that her teammates were in immediate danger of being overrun. "We need to move now," she told Kim, already beginning to pack her essential equipment. The new position she had identified was approximately 200 yards to the east, on a different part of the ridge that would give her clear lines of sight to the enemy positions that were currently engaging the assault team. But reaching it would require moving across exposed ground, while enemy forces were actively searching for threats. Sarah slung her rifle across her back and began moving, using the rocky terrain to mask her movement as much as possible. Kim followed close behind, carrying the spotting equipment and additional ammunition. Every step had to be calculated to avoid detection while maintaining speed. Halfway to their new position, Kim grabbed Sarah's arm and pointed toward the compound. Through the darkness, she could see several enemy fighters moving up the hillside in their direction. The enemy had spotted their muzzle flashes during the earlier engagement and was now actively hunting for their position. "They're coming for us," Kim whispered urgently. Sarah assessed the situation quickly. The enemy fighters were approximately 400 yards away and climbing steadily toward their original position. When they discovered the abandoned site, they would expand their search and likely find Sarah and Kim before they could establish effective fire support for the assault team. "How many do you count?" Sarah asked, studying the approaching figures through her rifle scope. "At least 6, possibly more behind them," Kim replied, using his night vision equipment to scan the area. Sarah made a tactical decision that would have surprised her instructors back in training. Instead of continuing to the planned overwatch position, she decided to engage the enemy search team directly. "I'm going to take them," she said simply. Kim looked at her with surprise. "That will give away our position completely. Every enemy fighter in the area will know exactly where we are." "They already know we're here," Sarah replied, settling into a firing position behind a cluster of rocks. "And if we don't stop them now, they'll overrun us before we can help the assault team." The first target was approximately 350 yards away, moving up the hillside with an assault rifle. Through her scope, Sarah could see that he was wearing night vision equipment and carrying additional gear that marked him as a more experienced fighter than the others they had engaged. Sarah controlled her breathing and settled her crosshairs on the target. The shot would be challenging because of the target's movement and the uphill angle, but it was well within her capabilities. The rifle recoiled against her shoulder, and she immediately saw the target drop. But instead of remaining hidden, Sarah quickly shifted her aim to the second target, who had reacted to his companion's death by seeking cover behind a large boulder. "Target down, acquiring second," she whispered to Kim. The second fighter was more cautious, only exposing small portions of his body as he tried to identify the source of the gunfire. Sarah waited patiently, knowing that eventually he would make a mistake that would give her a clear shot. When the fighter finally moved to a new position, Sarah was ready. Her second shot eliminated another threat, but now the remaining enemy fighters knew exactly where the fire was coming from. "Here they come!" Kim warned, watching as the surviving fighters began moving aggressively toward their position. What followed was unlike anything Sarah had experienced in training. The remaining enemy fighters, instead of retreating, began a coordinated assault on her position. They moved with tactical proficiency, using covering fire and bounding movements to close the distance while minimizing their exposure. Sarah found herself engaged in a rapid-fire sequence of precision shots, engaging multiple moving targets while they actively tried to kill her. Each shot had to be perfect because there was no margin for error. A miss would allow the enemy to get close enough to overwhelm her position. Her third shot dropped an enemy fighter who had gotten within 200 yards of her position. The fourth eliminated another threat who was trying to flank them from the north, but ammunition was becoming a concern, and Sarah knew she couldn't maintain this pace indefinitely. "Ammo check?" Kim called out, recognizing the same problem. 4 rounds left in this magazine. 2 full magazines remaining, Sarah replied, never taking her eye from the scope. The tactical situation was becoming desperate. The assault team was still pinned down in the valley, taking casualties from enemy fire. Sarah and Kim were under direct assault and running low on ammunition, and somewhere in the compound below, Abu Rashid was likely preparing to escape while American forces were engaged in a fight for survival. That's when Sarah heard a voice over the radio that changed everything. "This is Shark 7-1, came a calm, accented voice speaking in English. "I believe I am speaking to the American sniper who has been causing so much trouble for my men." Sarah and Kim exchanged glances. Someone among the enemy forces was using captured American radio equipment to communicate directly with them. "I am Abu Rashid," the voice continued. "The man you came here to kill. I must say I am impressed by your shooting skills. Very few of my fighters have been eliminated so efficiently." Sarah keyed her microphone. "If you're impressed, maybe you should consider surrendering." Rashid laughed, a sound that carried no humor. "Surrender? No, I think not. But I am curious about something. My men tell me that the sniper who has been killing them so effectively is a woman. Is this true?" Kim looked at Sarah questioningly, obviously wondering if she should respond. Sarah made a decision that reflected both her tactical training and her personal determination. "That's right," she said into the microphone, "and I'm not finished yet." "Fascinating," Rashid replied. "American women, fighting in combat like men. Your society has become very strange indeed. But tell me, does your skill with a rifle extend to close combat? Because my men are very close to your position now." As if to emphasize his point, Sarah heard movement in the rocks nearby. The enemy fighters had used the radio conversation as a distraction to move closer to her position. "Contact close," Kim whispered urgently, pointing toward sounds of movement approximately 50 yards to their east. Sarah faced a decision that would define her entire military career. She could maintain her sniper position and continue trying to provide long-range support for the assault team, or she could transition to close-quarter combat to deal with the immediate threat to her and Kim's survival. She chose a third option that demonstrated why she had earned her place among the elite operators of SEAL Team 6. "Kim, take over sniper duties," she said, handing him her rifle. "Keep supporting the assault team. I'm going to deal with our visitors." Kim stared at her in amazement. "You're going to engage multiple enemy fighters with just your sidearm?" Sarah was already moving, drawing her pistol and preparing to transition from precision sniper to direct action operator. They want to test my close combat skills. Let's give them what they asked for. What happened next became legendary within the special operations community, though the full details wouldn't emerge until after-action reports were filed weeks later. Sarah moved through the rocky terrain with the stealth and precision of a trained predator. Her years of combat training had prepared her for exactly this kind of close-quarters engagement, but doing it alone against multiple enemy fighters required skills that few operators ever had to demonstrate. The first enemy fighter she encountered was moving carefully through the rocks using night vision equipment to search for her previous position. Sarah approached from his blind side, using terrain features to mask her movement until she was within striking distance. The engagement was brief and decisive. Sarah's hand-to-hand combat training, combined with the element of surprise, allowed her to neutralize the threat silently. She recovered the fighter's weapon and continued moving toward the next target. Meanwhile, Kim had taken over the sniper rifle and was providing covering fire for the assault team. His shooting, while competent, lacked the precision that Sarah had demonstrated throughout the engagement. "Where's our sniper support?" Harrison's voice came over the radio, obviously noting the difference in effectiveness. "Martinez is dealing with enemy forces at our position," Kim replied while engaging targets downrange. "She'll be back on the rifle as soon as possible." In the rocky terrain above, Sarah was systematically eliminating the enemy search team. Her tactical movement and combat skills, combined with the confusion created by Kim's continued sniper fire, allowed her to engage each threat individually rather than facing the entire group simultaneously. The second and third enemy fighters fell to precise pistol shots, Sarah's marksmanship skills translating effectively from rifle to sidearm. But the fourth fighter proved more challenging. This opponent was clearly more experienced, reacting quickly to the loss of his companions and taking up a defensive position that was difficult to approach unseen. Sarah found herself in a tactical standoff, with both fighters aware of each other's approximate position, but neither able to gain a decisive advantage. "American woman," came a voice from the enemy fighter's position. "You have killed my brothers. Now you will die." Sarah didn't respond verbally, instead using the sound of his voice to pinpoint his exact location. She began a careful flanking movement, using every piece of cover and concealment available in the rocky terrain. The final engagement was the most dangerous of the night. The enemy fighter was skilled, experienced, and highly motivated. But Sarah's training combined with her tactical patience eventually created the opportunity she needed. When the fighter briefly exposed himself to change positions, Sarah was ready. Her shot was perfect, eliminating the last immediate threat to her and Kim's position. "Threats neutralized," she reported over the radio, already moving back toward Kim and the sniper rifle. "Outstanding work," came Harrison's voice. "Now get back on that rifle. We still need to complete this mission." Sarah resumed her position behind the sniper rifle, quickly assessing the tactical situation in the valley below. The assault team had used the distraction provided by her close combat engagement to improve their position, but they were still facing significant enemy resistance. Through her scope, Sarah could see that Abu Rashid was directing the defense from a position near the main compound building. He was clearly visible, standing in an area where he believed himself safe from sniper fire, due to the range and challenging shot angle. "I have eyes on the primary target," Sarah reported. "Range is approximately 900 yards, with significant wind and elevation challenges. You are cleared to engage," Harrison replied immediately. Sarah studied the shot carefully. The range was at the extreme edge of her rifle's effective capabilities, and the environmental conditions were the most challenging she had faced in combat. Wind was gusting unpredictably through the valley, and the target was partially concealed behind cover. But this was exactly what she had trained for during countless hours on the range. Sarah made her calculations methodically, accounting for every variable that could affect the shot's trajectory. "Taking the shot," she whispered to Kim. Abu Rashid was moving between covered positions, directing his fighters' resistance against the American assault team. Through her scope, Sarah could see him clearly each time he moved to give orders or assess the tactical situation. She waited for the perfect moment, controlling her breathing and heart rate while maintaining steady pressure on the trigger. When Rashid stepped into the open to direct fire toward the assault team, Sarah was ready for the shot. Broke cleanly, and Sarah immediately saw through her scope that it was a perfect hit. Abu Rashid dropped immediately, eliminated by a single precision shot from nearly 900 yards away. "Primary target is down," she reported over the radio. The effect on enemy resistance was immediate and dramatic. With their commander eliminated and having taken significant casualties from Sarah's precision fire, the remaining fighters began withdrawing from their positions. "Enemy forces are retreating," Harrison reported. "Mission accomplished. All team members prepare for extraction." As the team regrouped for their withdrawal from the target area, Sarah reflected on everything that had happened during the operation. She had faced every challenge that her doubters had claimed would expose her as unfit for combat operations. But more than just proving her individual capabilities, Sarah had demonstrated the kind of tactical flexibility and combat effectiveness that marked the very best special operations personnel. She had transitioned seamlessly from precision sniper to close-quarters combat operator and back again, adapting to changing circumstances while maintaining focus on the mission objectives. During the extraction helicopter flight back to their base, Jake Thompson approached Sarah with an expression she had never seen from him before. "I owe you an apology," he said, his voice barely audible over the aircraft engines. "What you did back there, I've never seen anything like it. You saved all our lives." Sarah looked at him steadily. "We're a team, Jake. That's what teams do." "No," Jake insisted. "What you did went way beyond normal teamwork. You took on multiple enemy fighters alone so that Kim could keep supporting us with sniper fire. Then you came back and made the shot that ended the whole engagement." Other team members were listening now, including Chief Rodriguez and Lieutenant Commander Harrison. The conversation had captured everyone's attention. "Martinez," Harrison said, "I'm putting you in for the Silver Star. What you did tonight represents the highest traditions of naval special warfare." Sarah felt a surge of pride but kept her response professional. "Thank you, sir. I was just doing my job." "Your job?" Jake laughed, but this time it was a sound of admiration rather than mockery. "Your job was to provide sniper support. What you did was redefine what it means to be a special operations warrior." In the weeks that followed, word of Sarah's combat performance spread throughout the special operations community. The after-action reports detailed not just her marksmanship skills, but her tactical adaptability and combat leadership under the most challenging circumstances. But perhaps the most significant change was in the attitudes of her teammates. The skepticism and hostility that had marked her early training days was replaced by genuine respect and professional admiration. David Kim, who had witnessed her performance from the closest vantage point, put it most succinctly during a team meeting after they returned from deployment. "I've worked with a lot of snipers over the years," he said, "but I've never seen anyone combine precision shooting with tactical flexibility the way Sarah did that night. She didn't just prove that women can serve in combat roles, she set a new standard for what special operations personnel should be capable of." The story of Sarah Martinez's combat performance became part of the unofficial curriculum at SEAL training facilities. Instructors used her example to demonstrate the importance of tactical adaptability and the value of preparation for multiple combat scenarios. But for Sarah herself, the most meaningful recognition came from an unexpected source. Several months after their return from Syria, she received a personal letter from the widow of a team member who had been wounded during the operation, but survived because of the covering fire she had provided. "I will never be able to adequately thank you for bringing my husband home," the letter read. "He told me about everything you did that night, and I want you to know that our entire family considers you a hero." As Sarah read the letter, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. The mockery and doubt from her early training days seemed like ancient history now. She had proven not just to her skeptics, but to herself that she belonged among the elite warriors of American special operations. But more importantly, she had demonstrated that excellence in combat has nothing to do with gender and everything to do with skill, determination, and the willingness to put the mission and teammates above personal safety. The female SEAL sniper, who had once been mocked by her peers, had become a legend in her own right, setting a standard of combat excellence that would inspire future generations of operators, regardless of their background or gender. Years later, when young women considering military service asked Sarah about her experiences, she always gave them the same advice: Train harder than everyone else. Never make excuses, and when the time comes to prove yourself, let your performance do all the talking. It was advice born from experience, tested in combat, and proven in the most dangerous circumstances imaginable. And it had turned a doubter's mockery into a warrior's legend that would be remembered long after the last shot was fired.